Hi guys, Aceface back with another video for Twisted Dice. I'm back with some more Tyranid tactics today and hopefully a video that's going to be really useful for you Tyranid players. Before we get started, I just want to say a big huge thank you for all the support we've had for all the Tyranid videos. It's been amazing. The comments have been out of this world, so thank you very much everybody that's taken the time to watch the videos. It means a lot to us. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. Only 36% of people that watch our videos are subscribed, so do us a huge favour. If you're watching this video, just hit the subscribe button. It helps us out tons. Give us a thumbs up and let us know what you think of the videos. Always really helpful, and we're always looking for your feedback. There's loads of ways to follow us. All the details down. You can become a patron, and there's loads of other cool stuff. Just do it now. Just press all these buttons and click all these links. But anyway, let's jump into this video today, and I want to talk Tyranid tactics. If you haven't already checked out my series on the cap strategy, on the cap system, then this will be really useful for you to do in preparation to this video. But if you haven't, this does stand alone, hopefully, as a useful video. Today we're going to cover what I think potentially might be one of the, or two of the strongest units, and maybe even, dare I say it, also include units in the Tyranid Codex, or in the Tyranid Arsenal in 9th edition. So the two units I'm going to cover are the meiotic spore and the sporocyst fortification. So these are two units that didn't see a huge amount of play in 8th edition. The meiotic spores were always quite, or not the meiotic, the meiotic spores, should I say, were quite useful in 8th edition, so they were a useful strategy, but I think they've just gone up in power significantly. So let's break these units down and talk about what makes them so good. First of all, these very much fit in your aggravate section of the cap strategy. So these guys are all around being an aggravation to your opponent and pushing your opponent back, meaning that both your power and your control units can do their job more effectively. So bear that in mind, because that's where they really come into their own. They're a very aggressive aggravate unit, but also can play a defensive role as well. So let's first of all cover the sporocyst. The sporocyst is your standard, comes in the Codex unit. It is a fortification, so very unusual because it is the only fortification that Tyranids have access to, and it is just basically a ground version of the Tyrannocyte transport spore pod, something like that. So yes, it's a fortification, so it doesn't move, so it's just going to sit there in the board, but it is a monster, so it does have monster stuff, and it's going to hang about. It's not that hard, it's not that difficult to shift. Still got multiple wounds, and still has got a fairly good toughness and a fairly good save. So it's it's not just going to literally fall apart as much as a normal spore mine will, but what does it do for you? Where does the benefit really come in? So it does have some shooting, so it has the benefit of being able to take 5 death spitters, 5 barb stranglers, or 5 venom cannons. So you generally want to go for either the venom cannons for the heavy hit if you've got the extra points, but most probably, to keep it cheap and cheerful, you're going to go for the death spitters. I quite like having the venom cannons, but I don't necessarily think that's the most optimum choice. So probably your best way to do it is just keep it as cheap as possible and keep your death spitters on there. That's going to do the trick for you. So once you've kitted it out with that, so it does have the benefit of 5 of those. So its ballistic skill is pretty poor, so it's only going to hit on 5s. It's not going to hit very often, but it does have quite a lot of shooting, with each one of those death spitters having 3 shots each. But that is not why you take it. It also has the ability to spawn spore mines every turn. So it can either spawn 3 little spore mines or 1 big spore mine. So that's not bad. That's not bad in itself. These can be quite irritating because you can actually put these within explode range if you've got an opponent close enough. So they can be quite good at just giving a little bit of a kick to something that's close by, but more often than not, just more of an aggravation unit, more of an irritation and blocking movement, and just really covering the board with spore mines is really useful. So yeah, so that's generally what the spore mine's used for, but they can be real irritation. You can be very janky with them. There's lots of little tricks that you can do with the spore mines just to really cut down your opponent's options and movement and just put them under additional pressure. I tend to always go for the smaller spore mines over the big one, just because actually with 3 spore mines you've got a bit more ball control than you have with the one, and you know, also you've got more chances when they do explode to potentially more damage. The maths probably works out pretty much equally, but I tend to always favour to go for the 3 chances rather than the just 1 and hope that you get lucky with it. So I tend to go for the little ones. Let me know if you prefer to go for the big one, but I tend to go for the little ones. So it does that, but it does a lot more than that, and this is where the secret sauce comes into both these 2 units that we're going to cover today. But the reason why it becomes almost an auto include in your Tyranid list, and that is the fact that it can infiltrate. I say infiltrate, I don't think it's really called that anymore, but basically what it means is it can deploy within the deployment phase, so that I go, you go. When you get to place a unit, you can place this guy 9 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone, 9 inches away from your enemy, and it will then sit there. So yes, it can't hold objectives, fortification, it's not going to hold the objectives, but what it will do is sit there and hold space. It's a fairly big base, it's going to hold good real estate on the board. What that's going to do is push your opponent back. So what it does is it stops them potentially from being able to get quickly into a ball control position, because they've got this huge great big spore mine that's sitting there blocking their way. So it will block their movement, it will just be an irritation. They need a troop choice to be able to, you know, well, not troop choice, sorry, they need numbers. They're going to try and kill this thing. It's just a real irritation, but the main thing that it does, even more than that, is it holds back their infiltrators. So if you've got the turn before them, it means you can slap this down, and that means that your Nurglings, your infiltrators, your stealth suits, your rangers won't be able to go within 9 inches of that sporocyst. That's really key, because that's where Tyranids can come a bit unstuck. We need to get in a ball control position, and if we don't have the advantage of having units that can kind of scout out and get up the board before our little bugs do, before we start to swarm the board, it can become a problem. The sporocyst does this very effectively, because it will just sit there and it will just hold that space to stop things getting close to it. So it's really good for that, and it's just a great unit for holding that space and just being an irritation, because your opponent just doesn't really want to have to deal with it, because it's not doing a lot of damage, it's not really doing much for us, but it's just aggravating it. It's just holding space, and it's just biding you time for your key units to be able to do what they do better and fall into place within that strategy. So that's the sporocyst. Really good unit. Take it in your next list and see how you get on. Now let's cover the second unit, which is the meiotic spore mines. These guys come in a unit of 3, so they're Forge World spore mines. So they are good because they're a unit of 3, they will do a lot more damage than a single Euclid spore mine, which is cool. These guys, though, the big thing with these is, again, these can infiltrate. That's where their key job is. So for a relatively small points investment, you've got a unit of these 3 spore mines that, again, you can put in a great blocking, great aggravating position on the board. So they can do an amazing job where that sporocyst does as well. So obviously the sporocyst gives you a little bit more resilience. These are slightly cheaper, and they can obviously do that. The great thing is these guys can work very well in tandem. So if you've got a sporocyst and then you've got a couple of units of meiotic spores, which is my favorite build for this, is you have the one sporocyst, which, if you've got the choice, you put that straight in the middle of the board, really blocking everything from the middle, giving you that 9-inch aura. You then have your 2 units of meiotic spores that are on the flanks, holding that space, and then you've got a line of basically no-go or no infiltrate within that zone. The great thing with the meiotic spores as well, because they're spores, they don't give up any victory points, so there's no kind of killing stuff from them. Again, they can explode, they can do damage. Can take them in bigger units. and if you want to, you can use these quite aggressively, very much so if you've taken them in Kraken, but more often these days we're not taking Kraken detachments, but you can still double move these with the Tyranid stratagem to be able to double move them, because remember, yes, you can't charge after that stratagem, but spore mines don't need to charge. They just need to be within 3 inches of your opponent to explode. So you can alpha strike with particularly with a bigger unit of these meiotic spores. It's not so much their use anymore, but it can be something that your opponent may not be looking out for. So you can, you know, get actually quite quick across the board because of that move, run, and then double move. And obviously, if you have Kraken, you can move them even quicker. If you've got Swarmlord, you can move them even quicker. On the whole, those two things don't really factor into probably our best list archetypes anymore, but you still can use these guys quite aggressively, and they can do quite a lot of damage, particularly in a big unit. But my preference is 2 units of 3. They just hold enough space to be an irritation and to be able to give you time to get your other troops into key positions on the board. And them, combined with a sporocyst, do a lot of work. You could also just go for 3 units of the meiotics. You could also go for multiple sporocysts. Viable tactics every single time. But my favourite way is to run it in that way. I don't think you want to invest personally more than 1 sporocyst. 1 sporocyst does the job really, really well, and the meiotics work really well with them as well. But if you want to keep it cheaper and cheerful, then you can go for the meiotic spores. I'm going to cover one little bonus little tactic for you. If you've not read into it or not used it in 8th edition, the spore field stratagem also works really well. It's quite heavy on CPs. Obviously you need to invest the points into it as well, and the big downer with it is you can only deploy it sort of at the end of deployment, which does mean that if your opponent's got infiltrating units, then you're going to be in trouble there. But you still have the opportunity to potentially use it as an alpha strike to try and take out their camping infiltrating units. But more often than not, I don't find it as useful as the other 2 units we've spoken about. But it's definitely a viable tactic, and I know that people still use it to effect. So one to definitely consider and to think about. But that's what I wanted to cover today. Hopefully that's been useful. If you've not already tried using these 2 units, make sure you give them a go. I've been using them to great effect on the battlefield. They work perfectly in the cap system, and will work wonders in that aggravate section. So give them a go. Let me know what you think. I'll be back with another Tyranid Tactics video real soon. You take care, guys. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.